I'm John McGrane. I run the British-Irish Chamber of Commerce, a small but perfectly formed body obsessed with just one thing, which is the trade between the two islands, north, south, east and west. If you don't know the numbers, 65, 70 billion euros of trade in both directions every year, north, south, east and west, at least 400,000 jobs, roughly evenly split on both islands, north, south, east and west. But it's not even about, we care about that stuff, obviously, about the business piece. And to the comment that's beginning to emerge about all business and no people, we're actually not in this for the shareholder dividends or the investment returns. We're in this for the jobs. And we're in it for the jobs because that's about peace and well-being and family life and stuff that powers up not just the City of London, but the highways and the byways of these two islands, villages and communities and townlands that without those jobs and without the continuing ability of business to make those jobs and to keep them and to keep growing them, then those jobs, the lights get turned out. And a really shocking thing that bears on this great part of the world and the connectivity between where I live in Dublin and the two islands relationships, which is, we say we've always traded and we always will trade, and that is impenetrable. It's just how much value might be taken out of it. In a really shocking shock to that system that brought it home to me in recent months, in one more announcement in February, Jaguar, a great employer in this parish, announced that they were going to close the third of 3 production lines in Halewood. That's not a trivial matter. And it's not all about Brexit, but it's hugely about Brexit. And it's quietly, not noisily enough going on. And what did they do the next day? They announced their newest investment, pub quiz number 1. What was their newest investment? For 5 marks. They announced the opening of their newest facility, which wasn't a heavy lifting machinery production line for Jaguar cars as we know them. It was their newest research centre for the study of autonomous driving, digital technology. Where did they put it? In Shannon. Because they don't need big, heavy lifting machinery. They need brains, they need broadband, and they need an environment that allows people to move back and forth throughout the European Union. So I don't mean to be in any way facetious. It's an extremely serious matter, but that's quietly been going on, and in my view, far too quietly over the recent while. The title of this module, as I understand it, is Business and the Politics of Brexit. It's probably better put as Politics and the Business of Brexit. Because actually, to the points that are emerging around the connectivity of business in this environment, I am unashamedly for business for the reasons that I've just mentioned. Business is actually the conduit by which most people who have a connectivity to the impact of European Union membership actually experience that in one way or another. It's not intended to be so, but the rules of the business structure that comes out of the political structure of the EU are the ways by which people have employment rights, have health and safety rights, have the ability to travel to work, have the ability to travel to train to work. If you're my adult kids who move around Europe originally to study and now to work freely, and you and yours still until April Fool's Day next year can still do that, it is the business fabric that devolves from the enabling by the rules and regulations of European Union membership that enables citizens like you and I and ours to enjoy the benefits or to disenjoy them for anybody who wants to opt out of that. And we say that, having campaigned for the UK to remain, believing that it was vitally important that the UK would be a strong partner for Ireland in remediating the European Union for its next phase, for its next 40 years, because there is much that is to be remediated and improved and assured. Now we absolutely respect the right of the UK people to vote as they did, to take back control of which foot to shoot themselves in, and promptly to shoot themselves in Ireland's. Because what happened the day after Brexit was the currency dropped by 17%, and it wasn't in Britain's foot that got shot. 6 Irish mushroom makers, mushroom farmers, some of them in some of my learned friends from the Irish Parliament here today, I see Declan in the corner, went bust within 2 months. And, mushroom farming has a margin of less than 1%. And you take 17% out of that, it doesn't look very good. And actually, those mushroom businesses didn't ask for some national rescue plan. They just asked for time to rebase their model. And what has been happening is that it is business that has been the front edge of whether Brexit is biting or it's not. It bit in Ireland, and those businesses, I'm glad to say, are mostly back in business as a result. They got back on their feet. That's what business people do, and that's what the staff in those businesses do. Meantime, in the UK, we watched with great shock, and a lot of politicians and all media did not get this, that the UK business system was financially hedged, i.e. the currency bite didn't come until at least a year later on, because the UK, unlike Ireland, are very disciplined business people, and they hedged their currency through long-term banking structures, etc., etc. As a result, it's only now, and it is definitely now, that the pain is beginning to bite. So we work with major multinationals, major UK multinationals, who sell tins of beans and great Irish food in one aisle, and on the other aisle they sell woolly jumpers. If you read the Office of National Statistics numbers, they publish them, so they must be true. The inflation rate for tins of beans and Irish food is about 2.9%, kept artificially under the magical 3%, the scary 3%. By what? Pushing up the price of woolly jumpers by 7%, 7.2% to be precise. So there is an artificialising to bury the pain for as long as possible. Our work now, my work now, I spend 50% of my time in the UK every week, whether in London, typically in Westminster, and in the regions. I was here last month working with Liverpool businesses to introduce them to Irish businesses to Brexit-proof both sides of their business, and I'll finish on that in a moment or two. In Westminster, what are we doing most at the present time? We are giving tutorials to politicians who have approached us at 2 minutes to midnight to say, can you tell us what the common external tariff is? No, I'm serious about this. I'm serious. I have the height of regard for the work that politicians do. And I've explained this to friends and colleagues to say, none of those politicians, some of them in the room, were ever elected on the platform that said, I'm a World Trade Organization expert. It doesn't happen in Ireland, and it doesn't need to happen here. What the learning is, we've asked people to do an incredibly difficult job without equipping them to do it. And business has a role in that. I thoroughly regret the fact that business in the UK was silent throughout the referendum. Not for the first time. Not for the first time. Think about Scotland, think about previous political campaigns. And I can tell you about Ireland too. In Lisbon 1, well, of course, in Ireland we know how to do referenda. We do them again. And we keep doing them until we get them right. But business was shamefully silent in Ireland on Lisbon 1. And had to mount a very late campaign in Lisbon 2, which we knew moved the dial by 4% in an outcome that actually changed the outcome there, because business got it that they had to speak up. Business here is as divided as the people, because FTSE chairpersons and CEOs, no matter what the business rationale, are personal at the end of the day. And it's only now that it's beginning to move. And I urge any of you who have influence in those cohorts, both in politics and in business, to respect the fact that it's personal, to respect the fact that people may not know the answer, and to help them to find the answer. Rounding that out, I would just say that, thinking about the North-South and the 20 years of the process that is so appropriately remembered in conversations like this. If we hadn't done, and if the people who represented us, and actually, just as an aside, the triumph of diplomatic endeavour that now stands before us is one to go down in the history books, in the legendary history books. Some of the people are in the room that made that happen and that helped people to get quiet, persuasive work done behind doors. And for anybody in the UK who thinks that Ireland will fold on this borderless piece, on this backstop piece, most of you know, all of you should know, that's not going to happen. Why? Because wonderful Irish representatives, working with great colleagues in the UK, it has to be said, and the solidarity of European Union support all the way throughout all of the other 26, have guaranteed a bedrock that's now turning out to be extremely useful to our friends in the UK to provide a roadmap, helped by business that says, actually, if we didn't have that backstop, business couldn't happen. There would be blockades and all the other issues, let alone security issues. And it's the jobs and the well-being of the people that derive from that matter. Upshot of that, we have just weeks left to deliver the outcomes from that. Guided in my running theme here, that business must speak and must be brave enough and must be intelligent enough to volunteer what business knows about how trade has to work so that those jobs can be sustained, to help public representatives understand the difference between getting it operatable and not operatable. And our last piece of that is that in business, you can't half do the job. We are at a very late stage, and hopefully, please God, we've got something of merit coming down the line that can stop us going over a cliff together. But I really urge politicians and public representatives and officials to make sure that we don't leave anybody behind. In today's world, Business is about goods for sure, and we're getting it about customs for borders and tariffs and those things, and hopefully we're nearly there. Don't leave services behind. The UK economy is 80% services, and services are the majority part of Irish trade now as well. Services, so we get it about financial services. They've made discussion of this toxic for everything else. That's a different problem. Don't forget about ordinary people, people who give a haircut, people who service your car, not just make your car, people who give you the opportunity to travel to other places. All of those invisible things are services, and we worry that actually, in the speed that we now need to give to just getting a goods deal over the line, that we may leave services behind. So we're in the business of trying to bring about the least worst Brexit. We respect that some form of Brexit has to happen, and we urge that the work of public representatives be supported by the practical sense that business can provide into that, to make sure we get a comprehensive solution for everybody that's at stake. Thanks very much.